There is a number in football that nobody talks about, but every Brazilian fan knows it. Every Brazilian coach has lived with it. And on July 5th, 2026, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, it got bigger. I am not going to tell you what happened right away, because to understand the full weight of what took place on that humid Sunday afternoon in New Jersey, you first have to understand what Brazil were carrying into that stadium, what they have been carrying for over 3 decades, and why, when the final whistle blew, an entire nation of 215 million people felt something collapse. Welcome to Memory of the Pitch. Let's get started. The last time Brazil failed to reach the quarterfinals of a World Cup was 1990. Italy, the round of 16, a 1-0 defeat to Argentina, their greatest rivals, in Turin. That was 36 years ago. In those 36 years, Brazil have reached at least the quarterfinals in every single edition of the tournament. 1994, champions. 1998, finalists. 2002, champions. 2006, quarterfinals. 2010, quarterfinals. 2014, fourth place. 2018, quarterfinals. 2022, quarterfinals. 8 consecutive tournaments. 8 consecutive times reaching at least the last 8. That was the record Carlo Ancelotti inherited when he took the job. That was the standard. That was the floor. Ancelotti arrived in Brazil carrying the kind of reputation that made the entire country believe. He had won the Champions League 4 times. He had managed Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, AC Milan, Chelsea, Napoli, and Everton. He was, by any reasonable measure, one of the most decorated managers in the history of the sport. Brazil believed that this was finally the appointment that would end 24 years of World Cup hurt. The drought that began the moment Ronaldinho's free kick sailed over David Seaman's head in Shizuoka in 2002, and the Selecao had never looked the same since. Brazil's squad for this tournament was not a squad in crisis. Vinicius Jr., arguably the best player in the world at club level over the last 2 seasons, was their talismanic forward, Rodrigo. Endrick, the 19-year-old phenomenon from Real Madrid who had been compared to Ronaldo and Neymar before he had played 50 senior matches. Casemiro in midfield. Bruno Guimaraes, one of the finest holding midfielders in Europe, and Neymar, 33 years old, making his final World Cup appearance as a substitute, carrying the emotional weight of a generation that had not yet delivered the one trophy that matters most. Before I tell you what happened, I want to ask you something, because I think this is a question that every football fan needs to answer honestly. Did you believe Norway could beat Brazil before this match started? Not after. Before. Drop your answer in the comments right now, because what you believe before the whistle blew says something very important about the way football has changed. MetLife Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey, 80,663 people, a crowd that was overwhelmingly yellow and green. Brazilian fans who had traveled across continents, who had spent thousands of dollars on tickets and flights, who had painted their faces and brought their flags and their drums and their belief. Norway brought a fraction of that number. Red scarves, quiet confidence, and Erling Haaland. The first half was not Haaland's. That is the truth of it. Norway had 65% possession but generated only 0.35 expected goals. Brazil created the better chances. Matheus Cunha won a penalty in the 12th minute after Christopher Ayer's clumsy challenge. Bruno Guimaraes stepped up, and Ørjan Nyland, Norway's 35-year-old goalkeeper, their oldest player, a man who had spent most of his career in relative anonymity, dived low to his left and pushed it away. That save changed this match. That save, more than anything else, is why Norway are in the quarterfinals. At halftime, Norway manager Ståle Solbakken made a decision that looked strange in the moment and looks like genius in retrospect. He removed Alexander Sørloth, a 20-goal scorer across all competitions for Atletico Madrid, the lively Antonio Nusa, replacing them with Andreas Schjelderup and Oscar Bob, 2 attacking substitutes before a ball had been kicked in the second half. The tactical logic was clear in hindsight. Sørloth, a natural center forward, was struggling to function wide. Schjelderup gave Norway a natural 4-3-3 balance they had been missing, and what Schjelderup produced in the second half was the reason those 2 goals happened. Then came the 79th minute. Schjelderup received the ball on the left side of the penalty area. He whipped in a cross from the left, low, precise, hard, and in the center of the 6-yard box, Erling Haaland had completely lost his marker, Gabriel. The Arsenal center-back, one of the best in the Premier League, a man who had handled every aerial challenge thrown at him across 90 Premier League games, was simply beaten. Haaland rose. His header was powerful downward, and the goalkeeper Alisson could not stop it. Norway 1, Brazil 0, 79 minutes. The stadium went silent. Brazil responded the way Brazil always do: Vinicius Jr., Endrick, Neymar entering from the bench to huge roars. But every shot was saved or missed. Every chance that should have been converted was not. And then in the 90th minute, Sheldera played Haaland in once more, this time from the edge of the box. Haaland did not hesitate. A low left-footed drive, arrowed into the corner. Too powerful, too precise, too inevitable for Alisson to stop. Norway 2, Brazil 0. The yellow scarves fell, the drums stopped, and Haaland had 7 goals at his first World Cup. Let me give you the numbers that explain why this result was both a shock and, in hindsight, entirely explainable. Norway remain the only nation that Brazil have faced and never beaten across their entire international history. 5 meetings, 0 wins for Brazil, 2 draws, 3 Norway victories. Brazil had a 34% possession share in this match, their lowest on record in any World Cup game ever. They generated 2.73 expected goals, thanks largely to 2 penalty kicks. Norway generated 0.84. On the balance of chances, Brazil should have won. On the scoreboard, Norway won by 2. And then there is the Haaland data specifically: 7 goals from 18 shots in this World Cup, a 39% conversion rate, the best conversion rate by any player in a single World Cup, with more than 15 shots since Gary Lineker in 1986, who scored 6 goals from 15 attempts at 40%. Haaland is averaging a goal every 14 touches at this tournament. 14 touches, not 14 shots, 14 touches of the football. Period. He has scored in 14 consecutive appearances for Norway. He has scored 2 or more goals in 3 separate matches at this single tournament, tied for 3rd most all-time in a single World Cup edition, behind only Just Fontaine in 1958 and Sandor Kocsis in 1954. I want to stop here and ask you directly. You have just seen the numbers: 7 goals, 39% conversion, a goal every 14 touches in his first World Cup at 25 years old. The question I want you to answer in the comments right now is this: is Erling Haaland already the best striker in the world? Not the best player, the best striker. Because I think the answer to that question is changing in real time, and I want to know what you think. Let me talk about what this means for Brazil, because this is not just a football result. This is a cultural moment for a country where football is not a sport, it is an identity. Brazil have now been eliminated from 6 consecutive World Cups by European opposition. 6. Since defeating Germany in the 2002 final, the Selecao have lost to England, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and now Norway in the knockout rounds. The European dominance of this sport has never been clearer, and for a nation that defines its relationship with football through the word jogo bonito, the beautiful game, that is not just a footballing failure, it is something deeper. Carlo Ancelotti's Brazil were not outclassed in the traditional sense. They had better individual players in almost every position on the pitch. They had Vinicius Jr., a man who has won back-to-back Ballon d'Or awards, arguably the best winger in the world. They had Rodrigo and Endrick. They had one of the deepest attacking squads at this tournament, and yet they missed 2 penalties. Endrick wasted a one-on-one. Vinicius was denied by Nyland twice. The chances came. The conversion did not. And when the conversion does not come in a knockout match at a World Cup, the other team scores twice in the last 11 minutes and you go home. Now let me tell you what this means going forward. Because Norway are in the quarterfinals of the World Cup for the first time in the history of their men's national team. They face England in Miami on July 11th, and Haaland has 7 goals. 7 in a tournament that still has 4 potential matches left if Norway reach the final. He is tied with Messi and Mbappé at the top of the Golden Boot race. Every game Norway win is another game Haaland can score in, and here is the number that should terrify every defensive coach in this tournament. Norway have won 17 consecutive games when Haaland scores, 17 straight wins. He scores, they win. It is almost that simple. England. That is the quarterfinal. The 3 Lions who beat Mexico 3-2 in a dramatic match at the Azteca, the first time England have ever won a World Cup match at that stadium, led by Jude Bellingham, who scored twice in Mexico City to become the first player to score 2 goals at the Azteca in a World Cup since Diego Maradona in 1986. Harry Kane, who has been building quietly through this tournament, now has 4 goals. England have genuine quality, genuine depth, and the psychological momentum of an historic victory. This will not be easy for Norway, but Norway just beat Brazil. Nothing feels easy anymore for anyone who faces them. I want to step back from the tactical detail and talk about what Erling Haaland represents, not just in this tournament, in the sport because something is happening at this World Cup that goes beyond goals and Golden Boot statistics. There is a transition of power taking place, and it is happening faster and more dramatically than anyone predicted. Messi is 39, Ronaldo is 41. The two men who defined the last 15 years of this sport are both still here, both still producing, but the context has changed, the conversation has changed, and Haaland at 25 in his first World Cup, scoring 7 goals against Iraq, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Brazil, is the reason the conversation has changed. The numbers he has produced in his debut World Cup are historically extraordinary. 7 goals in 4 appearances, more goals in his debut World Cup than Messi had in his first tournament, more than Mbappé had, more than Ronaldo had, more than all 3 of them combined in their debut editions. The conversion rate of 39%, a goal every 14 touches, 3 multi-goal games. He has scored in all 4 matches he has played, having sat out the France game entirely by design. He is 25. He will appear at the 2030 World Cup, potentially the 2034 World Cup. The records he is chasing now, and the records he may eventually surpass, are not fully visible yet. That is what makes this moment so significant. And yet, I want to be careful here, because the greatest players in history, the ones who truly define an era, do not just score goals at one tournament, they define multiple tournaments across multiple decades. Messi won his first Ballon d'Or in 2009, he won his 8th in 2023, 14 years of sustained excellence at the absolute summit of the sport. Haaland has 7 goals at one World Cup. The question the next decade will answer is not whether he was extraordinary here. He was. The question is whether he can sustain this level, this ruthlessness, this efficiency, this physical dominance across the years that follow. So I want to end with a question that I think will generate the most interesting conversation in the comments. Brazil are out. Haaland has 7 goals. Norway are in the quarterfinals. Messi and Mbappé are also on 7. England, France, Argentina, Spain, they are all still alive. And the tournament is not finished. So tell me, not who you want to win. Who do you think wins the 2026 World Cup? And does Haaland win the Golden Boot? 2 answers, 1 comment. Because I think the 2 questions are connected in a way that nobody is fully talking about yet, and I want to hear your thoughts. Brazil are out. Norway are through. Haaland has 7 goals in a quarterfinal against England in Miami, and the 2026 World Cup has just produced one of the greatest upsets in its history. I will be covering every moment of what comes next. The quarterfinals, the semifinals, and whatever final story this tournament decides to tell. Subscribe to Memory of the Pitch. We will see you for every moment of what comes next.